outside. It's not easy to come inside, isn't it? In any case, let's start. In this session, we have got 5 speakers, but looks like one person is still not here. But let me introduce myself. My name is Muazzam Hussain. I work at Griffith University, Brisbane, Australia, over a long period of time. And I'm also with this organization, WASD, working with alum from the beginning. So you can see I'm one of the people who were with WASD over a long period of time as well. And I would like to introduce our reporter in this session, Dr. Nehela A. Khalifa. And she is an assistant professor at King Abdulaziz University, Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And let me introduce a couple of our speakers, and then I will request Dr. Nehela Khalifa to introduce 2 more. On my left is Susann Stritzke. She is from University of Oxford, and her presentation is on implementing the first solar PPP in Zambia, policy implications and learning lessons. Very interesting. We look forward to your presentation, Susanna. And I would also like to introduce Valima Dayana, is it? Valima? And she is from University of Tolima, Colombia. And her presentation is on sustainable economic development in post-conflict Colombia. Again, this one is very interesting as well. May I now request Dr. Nehela Khalifa to introduce the rest of our speakers. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our third speaker is Dr. Sarah Saad. She is from Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Sudan. She will introduce her topic about combating desertification in Sudan, experience and lessons learned. And on my right side, Dr. Ghassan Abulebda from American University, Sharjah, UEA, and he will deliver a topic about understanding attitudes, generations, why towards transport, as the case of Dubai. Welcome.
Then please, so you are there, yes, is it?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
And
the same topic with Dr. Sarah, Sufyan, is Sufyan Osman, Minister of Oil, Sudan.
And also Alam Ahmed, looks like here.
Yeah.
Right. Alam here?
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. And without making further, yeah, Mike? Yes, please. Yeah. It looks like it was on, then I turned it off. Okay. And the first speaker in this session is Susanna, and she is going to talk about the implementing the first solar PPP in Zambia. Thank you. Before that, you have got 10 or 12 minutes, but my own sort of, objective is we can even give you 15 minutes, but that includes the discussion or question and answer, Q&A, right? Each of the presentation, we would like to do that. Otherwise, we just forgot what you say as a first presenter and after the lunch. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Muazzam. Thank you very much, Nala. Let's get this started. Oh, wow, there we are.
Yeah.
I will now present mainly the findings of our research project, which is called Making Light Work. And it's evaluating the launch of the Scaling Solar program in Zambia as well as other countries in Africa. And the Scaling Solar program is the first solar PPP in Zambia. Just as a side note, our research project was funded by the British Academy, so we're acting as independent researchers from any other institutions here. And if you are interested in learning more about it, this presentation is also a condensed version of my paper called Clean Energy for All, the implementation of scaling solar in Zambia, which will be published in the World Journal of Science and Technology as the special edition for this conference. So just to give you a brief introduction what we are talking about, Zambia is one of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa which has an urgent need to enhance its energy supply. As you can see, the electrification rate is rather low. Only 31% of the population in the country has access to energy, and there's a huge gap between demand and supply, which became dramatic in 2015 as Zambia was facing a drought, and as you can see, it draws 83% of its energy from hydropower. That means that it's a very clean energy solution, but it's also very much affected by climate change, and shortages of rainfall created an energy crisis. As a result, the Zambian president directed the Zambian Industrial Development Corporation, which is a state-owned agency, to procure 600 megawatts of solar power through the Scaling Solar program in 2015 to overcome this national crisis. Just to give you a brief background of the program, it's basically designed by the IFC, or the World Bank's IFC. It's a program to support governments to procure solar energy at competitive prices, especially in developing countries. The program will be implemented by the governments of these countries in cooperation with the IFC. And the core of the program is to provide a number of services like insurances, financing options, and risk packages to improve the implementation and the financeability of energy infrastructure projects. The projects within the Scaling Solar program are based on very complex contractual agreements. This means the developer who wins the bid owns 80% of the project company. The state-owned government agency who rolls out the project owns 20%, and they sell the energy to the national utility. So that's a very complex construct. And the developers or the bidders are evaluated, or they are awarded the project through a reverse auction process. So basically the government, or in this case the Industrial Development Corporation, puts out a project, a tender for 50 megawatts, and who bids the lowest price will win the project. The program has caused a lot of debate in the previous years, especially with regard to the prices that have been achieved during the first rounds, which are very low, which is good. But there are also debates whether this basically kills the market for renewable energy in these areas. There were questions about local content and local involvement, since all bidders were foreign companies, or also the projects were awarded only to foreign companies. And there's also a debate about the conflict of interest because of the involvement of the procuring company in the project company. As I mentioned, it's the Scaling Solar Round 1 in Zambia is the first solar project at all at that scale. So Zambia has no real solar energy projects installed so far. And when the bids were announced, very low tariffs were achieved in 2015-16 during the first round, which was very positively received in the region. And a second round has been launched in May 2017, but we're still waiting for the next step within that round. So what are the framework conditions? And I think these conditions are very important when we consider the implementation of this PPP in Zambia. As I said earlier in the session before, all PPPs are different, all countries are different. So there are very specific conditions for this project implementation. And Zambia had the problem to attract foreign investment due to high-risk patterns, which made financing for any infrastructure project very expensive. And so there was an urgent need for a solution here, basically. And it can be said that the risk guarantees and the financing option provided by the World Bank in this program were an important precondition to launch such a scale project at all, renewable energy project in Zambia. We have a little crash in the computer. Okay, no, it's all good. Okay, the implementation of the. Okay. The second important point here, if we link it to the public-private partnership concept, is to note that Zambia has a formal framework for public-private partnerships, which is developed but not applied. So the implementation of the project happened largely outside that framework. So there was no really independent actor or unit to oversee the project implementation. So there was this question of transparency and control that still hangs over the whole project. So where are we now with round one? So all my analysis is focused on the first round of scaling solar in Zambia, as the second round is still at the very early stage. As you can see, it ran, everything went very smoothly, bid preparation, project preparation, tender process and award, everything was totally fine. But now we have an issue with financial close, and nobody really knows when the projects will be commissioned. So the initial goal of the Scaling Solar program was to have these projects online within 24 months, but now we have a delay of roughly 14 months. Financial close for one project was announced in December last year, 2017, which is still debated. So ZESCO says something different than the IFC. And the financial close for the second project is still open. So the question arises, what are the problems? Why is this project delayed? And we did an analysis. And we looked into the concept of critical success factors for public-private partnership. That's a concept that has been evaluated in a lot of studies. And we found 5 major critical success factors for the implementation of public-private partnership infrastructure projects in several countries, not only in Africa. And we have checked, and found out that all of these 5 major CSFs were met, and all the requirements were fulfilled by the program, since it was very well designed. So the question still remains, why is the project delayed if all these requirements were met? And we found through our empirical research, which was based on stakeholder interviews, a lot of them very confidential, there was a matter of public stakeholder alignment and public stakeholder capacity and expertise. So these are 2 different areas which are closely related to each other. And these 2 factors had a very high impact on, and still have a high impact on project implementation. So that's rather abstract. So the question is, what does that mean in detail? So you can see here 3 pictures. The first and the last one refer to the site of the project. There were huge problems with the technical conditions of the site. The shape wasn't optimal. In the middle, you see an irradiation map, so that data was not correct. So developers had a huge problem in actually developing the site, and they were not involved in selecting the site. The site was chosen by Zambian Development Agency, who has never implemented such a project before and was not really aware of the requirements of such a project. The second issue was were matters with the legal energy framework in Zambia. There were a lot of hiccups between the agencies, whether the grid code has to be changed or not, and developers were waiting. So these were all factors that delayed the project. And it also became apparent that the lack of an independent coordinator of the process was a problem in this project, and still is, because there has been no change really in the project structure. What are the learning lessons here briefly? So we can basically draw three conclusions, or conclusions for three different areas here. The first is for the public sector, and the project has shown, and the analysis has shown, that these projects need a longer time preparation, which does not only mean the focus on the technical details, they were all perfectly met, or the financial criteria. It also means that getting people on board, getting agencies on board, and if it's the first time that such a project is implemented, we need to build know-how and capacity, so we can't blame someone for not, choosing the right site or fulfilling our criteria, but there has to be a capacity building procedure in place before such a process is launched. And we need someone who is neutral, who is has any interests in the project, who coordinates and oversees the process. Second, the private sector has a lot of risk appetite at the moment. There's kind of a race for implementing renewable energy projects in Africa. We have recently seen in Senegal, where Scaling Solar has announced his first round results with prices under $4. So developers really need to consider whether their risk appetite is adequate in such an environment. And for the Clean Energy for All initiative, it also means that, shall we think big or shall we rather think small? Because do we rather invest in smaller projects, or do we focus on one or two large projects? If they fail or if they delay, they have a huge impact. There are also issues in terms of grid capacity, and at the end, it must be said, the electrification rate in rural areas in Zambia is 4%, only 4%, and these projects will not help these people to get access to clean energy in the future. So we need to think about alternative concepts here, and whether these large-scale energy auctions are the right solution. So there are a number of further implications for other projects. And I think a central element is also the question of community benefits. This concept has been proven in the REAP program in South Africa. We need to think about local content. Don't we create new dependencies if we only have foreign developers who get in with their workforce, get out with their workforce with these processes? And how do we move on with alternative project solutions? I want to invite everyone who is interested. We're having a workshop at Oxford on June 7th on questions of sustainable electrification in Africa. So whoever is interested, please email me. You find my email address on the presentation. And please read the paper if you want more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's quite interesting to see that the Zambian public sector joining with the private sector on this particular issue. Before I ask for questions from the floor, may I just take the opportunity to ask you first? The first question is on the IFC. We haven't said much on the IFC, so can I just please elaborate what exactly their role in there?
Okay. International Finance Corporation, I think a lot of people know them. Yeah. They actually developed the Scaling Solar program independently from Zambia or any country in cooperation with other World Bank agencies, and they're involved in the rollout of the program in the country. So they are coordinator between the World Bank and the project company in terms of financing, but they're not involved actually as a shareholder in the project company.
Right. Thank you. That's clear. May I now ask the floor? Yes, please. Can you please speak loudly and your name, please?
Okay, my name is Dr. Mayada Abu Affan. I'm a consultant in public health with Dudley Local Government in the UK. Thank you very much. There is huge potential in terms of solar energy in Africa, especially where I'm originally from, like Sudan. So my question is, you mentioned the community benefits as something to explore further, but would this project measure the impact on fuel poverty and economic prosperity? Because this is, I think, the lever to roll it out to other African countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The answer is, at the moment, unfortunately, no, we're not looking into energy poverty issues. We're just evaluating the take of this project and the success factors for this particular program in Zambia. But we're currently putting a proposal for clean energy solutions and further explore these opportunities in terms of local business development, energy policy frameworks, and community needs and benefits. So we'll wait to hear next month, and then I hope we can further work on that topic.
Anyone else, please? Yeah.
Like Mayada, actually, I would like to extrapolate to other countries, because Zambia is not unique in many of the problems you are talking about. Particularly, this is true for most of sub-Saharan Africa. And this is why I'm interested, because this is a type of public-private partnership which didn't go quite right. And therefore, there must be some kind of lessons to be learned and lead to some kind of guide of how to apply PPP in Africa or in the sub-Saharan Africa or in developing world generally. So any thoughts about this?
I mean, yes, I presented a number of policy implications, and with this specific program, and I think we heard that earlier from Danilo, that there is a need for oversight. That's very, very important with any kind of PPP project, and the question of independent coordination with someone who has no interest in the project itself. That's one important aspect. And the other aspect is also look into innovation. Do we really need these state-led processes, or do we have other opportunities to support innovative business development models, innovative energy projects in Africa? Because these are state-led and they attract foreign investment, which is good in the short run, but they might create new dependencies between developed and developing countries. So they need to be seen critical. They are an opportunity for now, but they cannot be the future forever, future solution.
Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah. Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. I'm Dr. Prom Jackson, and I'm an inspector with the Joint Inspection Unit. My colleague Petru is coordinating this. I want to thank you very much for this presentation, and I joined colleagues before me who spoke to the importance of this particular initiative, and especially as we look at alternative energy and the solar energy, which is quite important for Africa and hopefully would address issues of efficiency. I do have a question, and I think people have asked questions about lessons learned. I was quite surprised, actually, with two things. One is that the IFC has been doing these projects for quite a while. And it was quite interesting that the lessons learned over so many years actually were not applied in this particular case. So I was very, very surprised, both from the IFC as well as the World Bank. And I worked with the World Bank for 15 years. And I'm just wondering why some of those, is it that we don't know how to learn? Or is it that these are so very different? Every time we do one of these things that the lessons would be different, in which case they're not generalizable. And in which case then you actually develop the lessons inherent to the context and carry that out. My second point is, and I want to make this point being an African, I do make this point in every fora in Geneva. And that point being, people speak for Africa and continue to come to speak for Africa. I fully appreciate the fact that this is your project, but it's a little bit daunting when Africans are not on the table. I acknowledge the presence of the Maghreb, the Arab states, in this forum, held by my colleague, and I think that is most welcome. But what I find totally missing is the face of Africa, be it West Africa, South Africa, and somebody else is speaking for them. And this is a point I make in all fora, and it doesn't include the JIU holding fora in Geneva. And I would like everybody to take note of that factor and that you consider it. Well, we always have the excuse it's either distance or something else. I think it's an important factor to consider as we move forward in the rest of the world. And it actually hurts me being here in Geneva. The Africans are either the ones running the mic.
Excuse me. Sorry, could you just put a little bit short?
I'd like to make this point, and it's not only a political, it's also a point as we move forward in the 2030 agenda for inclusion and national ownership, that we consider who really are the beneficiaries we're talking about, and that we don't continue to play the dominance of power in knowledge, to later on take this knowledge and impose it on people. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I took a bit more time, but my comment is quite general, and it's not specific to just this presentation.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. I tried to respond as briefly as possible. Maybe we start with the second point, and I can't agree more on this. And I'm missing African faces as well. I mean, there are a lot of fellows from the Sudan, but also from sub-Saharan Africa, Zambia or Kenya, Tanzania. Where are you? Please make yourself visible. So I see that as an important point. And we have been working on that project together with the University of Cape Town because this is a knowledge hub for energy research in Africa. As I said, the know-how about solar energy in Zambia is yet very limited, but in the future project we try to take that into account and roll out workshops and university exchanges with Zambia, with universities of Uganda. So that's definitely a goal, but I can't agree more on that. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that's very important. And the first question, why haven't we learned? I mean, it's maybe just too easy to say, okay, because we ignore everything that we have heard before. And we also see that mistakes are always made again and again. I think in Zambia it was a special case because there was a high political urgency, and they had the energy crisis. It was an election year, so there were a lot of factors that contributed to the fast speed or to the push that was the pressure behind the program to implement it as quickly as possible. Nevertheless, I totally agree. So I'm not an insider from the IFC nor the World Bank, so I cannot say what mechanisms they have in place to transport learning lessons, but apparently they need a good mechanism or need to improve that mechanism. So yeah, there were these two factors, country-specific as well as institutional issues within these organizations.
Thank you. Given the importance of this topic, is there anyone else who would like to ask any question, please? Yeah, thank you.
Sadiq Musa, I'm from Multimedia University, Malaysia. Actually, it's a not question. Please, if you involve any research in Africa, involve Africans. And this is obviously people talk by the name of Africa, but there are no African there. So in the future, please involve Africans to be part of your team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think thanks very much, Susann.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.